There are many different similarities and differences between two different human rights activists from two different time periods. Constantine, the emperor of the Roman Empire, and the 14th Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader of Tibet, are two very important people from two very different times. Constantine, the emperor of Rome from 306 AD to 337 AD, was born Flavius Varius Constantine, or Constantine. He was born in Nice, which is modern-day Nice in Serbia. The date of birth of Constantine is unknown, but it was sometime between the year 272 and 285. His parents are Constantius Chlorus, who was a Caesar and Augustus under the Roman Empire, and Helena, who was a saint under the Christian Church. Constantine is known for being the first Christian emperor in the Roman Empire. He is also known for many different accomplishments, but he is most famously known for ending the Christian persecution under the Roman Empire.
The 14th Dalai Lama was born Tenzin Gyatso. The 14th Dalai Lama was born on July 6, 1935. The 14th Dalai Lama was born in Tibet to a family in the eastern border of Tibetan region, Amdo. The 14th Dalai Lama is a human rights activist who fights for freedom of Tibet, as well as other problems in Tibet. A Dalai Lama is a head of state and spiritual leader of Tibet. The 14th Dalai Lama is known for his peaceful and non-violent acts towards China. He is also known for his ways of being Tibetan monk and having ideas of a Buddhist.
The human rights issue during the reign of Constantine comes from Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 18 states that everyone has the right to freedom of religion and to express their religion in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. The human rights issue during the Roman Empire is how the Christians were being treated under the empire. The persecution of Christians began with the Diocletianic persecution, or the Great Persecution. In 303, the four emperors of the Roman Empire, Diocletian, Maximin, Galerius, and Constantius, the father of Constantine, issued a number of different edicts against the Christians. Diocletian government destroyed churches, killed the leadership, and removed the Christians from the government and military. There are a variety of reasons why the Christians were persecuted under the Roman Empire. Preserved pagan and Christian sources held many accusations against the Christians, like charges that range from incest to cannibalism. The reason the Christians were most likely persecuted was that the pagans were probably suspicious because the Christians refused to sacrifice to the Roman gods, because the Christians were monotheistic, while pagans were polytheistic. The Christians would not do anything to even imply that there were other gods than God himself. This would insult the Roman gods and endanger the empire. Constantine was the liberator of the human rights issue during the time period. He sought to end the persecution of Christians to help them. Constantine had many great influences that helped him to write the Edict of Milan. There are two that may have influenced him the most. One influence on Constantine's life was his mother, Helena. Helena was born in 250 AD in Bithynia, which is modern-day Turkey. When her son Constantine was proclaimed emperor, Helena moved to Rome, where she converted to Christianity. Her converting to Christianity may have influenced Constantine to also convert to Christianity, just to follow his mother. This may have also influenced Constantine to write the Edict of Milan, because since his mother was Christian, she was probably looked down upon under the empire. Another influence on Constantine's life that led him to write the Edict of Milan was the vision of the Cross of Light. On October 27, 312, the day before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Constantine looked up to the sun and saw a cross of light, and above it were the words that were translated, "In this sign you shall conquer." The next night, Constantine had a dream in which Jesus Christ told him to use the sign of the cross in his battles, and if he did, he would win the battles. This may have influenced Constantine to convert to Christianity, because if he uses the Christian symbol, the cross, he would have great success in his battles. Constantine has faced many moral dilemmas as Emperor of Rome, but one significant moral dilemma faced is how he should handle the issue of Christianity in the Roman Empire. Constantine tries to decide whether he should stop the persecution of Christians or if he should let the persecution continue. If he decides to try and end the persecution, a long-term effect would be that it would allow people to live freely with no threats. A short-term effect would be that the property of the Christian church would be returned. If Constantine decides to not try and end the persecution, a long-term effect would be that Christianity would not become legal, which would mean that Christianity would never become the world's most practiced religion. A short-term effect would be that the Christians may not support Constantine because he practiced Christianity and used the cross in battles.
To take action against the persecution of Christians under the Roman Empire, which massively began by Emperor Diocletian, the co-emperors Constantine, who ruled the west of the Roman Empire, and Licinius, who ruled the east of the Roman Empire, wrote the Edict of Milan. An edict is a proclamation having the force of law. There were many edicts during the Roman Empire. The two emperors, Constantine and Licinius, met in Milan to resolve the political problem. While in Milan, the two emperors also agreed on several legal actions in favor of Christians. All orders of hostile attitude toward Christians were lifted and freedom of religious practices were granted. Another thing that the Edict of Milan granted was that all confiscated property of the church was to be restored. The Edict of Milan was similar to the earlier Edict of Toleration by Emperor Galerius, but the Edict of Milan went a little bit deeper.
Constantine had much opposition, but a major opposition was the co-emperor from the Roman Empire, Licinius. Licinius and Constantine wrote the Edict of Milan, which granted religious freedom throughout the Roman Empire. Licinius was married to Constantine's half-sister, Constantia, but Licinius eventually fought against Constantine during the civil wars of Tetrarchy. Licinius voided the religious freedom granted by the Edict of Milan in 320 to try and gain control of the whole empire. But by not going along with the Edict of Milan, Licinius gained much support of the pagans in the Eastern Roman Empire. This caused many battles between Constantine and Licinius, with Constantine emerging victorious. Licinius was hanged by Constantine, making Constantine the sole ruler of the Roman Empire. Constantine has been recognized by many historians because of his great acts performed by him. The greatest historian to recognize Constantine was Eusebius of Caesarea. Eusebius of Caesarea wrote the book The Life of the Blessed Emperor Constantine. Throughout the whole book, Eusebius states that the Emperor Constantine is celebrated as a saint in the Orthodox Church. Eusebius also states that his great merit from Christian point of view was legalizing Christianity. Eusebius makes Constantine look like a hero and savior of Christianity. This quote by Constantine is from the translated Edict of Milan. We thought to arrange that no one whatsoever should be denied the opportunity to give his heart to the observance of the Christian religion. This quote shows the commitment of Constantine towards stopping the persecution because it shows that he wants no one to be persecuted because they are Christian. This quote also shows the commitment because this quote from the Edict of Milan, the document used to make Christianity legal.
The human rights issue since the 14th Dalai Lama was put into position of the Dalai Lama revolves around Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that everyone has the right to take part in their government and that the people should be able to have the say in the government. What the 14th Dalai Lama wants to do is detach from China. The 14th Dalai Lama wants to detach because China wants to rule over Tibet and wants Tibet to be a communist country, just like themselves. The 14th Dalai Lama wants Tibet to have a voice and be independent from China. Tibet has been controlled by the Chinese People's Republic Army since 1951. The occupation of Tibet has been called a cultural genocide by the Tibetan people. The Tibetans do not want the Chinese to rule over them because the Chinese destroy the Tibetan culture, removed the religious freedom, and destroyed the religious symbols in Tibet. The 14th Dalai Lama has had many great influences that helped him achieve many accomplishments. There are two great influences that influenced the 14th Dalai Lama the most. The first influence on the life of the 14th Dalai Lama is Thupten Gyatso, the 13th Dalai Lama. The 13th Dalai Lama influenced the 14th Dalai Lama by teaching him about nonviolence. The 13th Dalai Lama taught Tenzin Gyatso that nonviolence solves problems better than using violence. The 13th Dalai Lama was a good role model on the 14th Dalai Lama, so that is most likely why Tenzin Gyatso used the 13th Dalai Lama's ideas. He put the ideas to good use when he was appointed as the 14th Dalai Lama. Another influence on the 14th Dalai Lama was his two teachers. The teachers were named Yongzin Ling Rinpoche and Yongzin Tringyang Rinpoche. The 14th Dalai Lama's two teachers taught him the ways of being Buddhist. Teaching him the ways of being Buddhist may have affected the ways of his teachings and may have greatly impacted how he feels about Tibet-China situation. The 14th Dalai Lama faces many moral dilemmas as the spiritual leader of Tibet. The major moral dilemma faced by the 14th Dalai Lama is how he should handle the situation with China. The 14th Dalai Lama tried to decide whether he should fight for Tibet's freedom or back away and let China take control of Tibet. The 14th Dalai Lama decides to fight for Tibet. A long-term effect would be that the 14th Dalai Lama may get recognized more, which would increase his popularity and support towards Tibet's freedom. A long-term effect for the 14th Dalai Lama fighting for Tibet would be that he would still face difficulties from China. If the 14th Dalai Lama decides to back away and let China take over, a long-term effect would be that Tibet would be given no power and no voice for the people. A short-term effect if China takes over would be that the oppression in Tibet would still remain. To take action against the situation with China and Tibet, the 14th Dalai Lama wrote a constitution that Tibet wants to have. The constitution gave Tibetan government the right to be a democratic country and not be ruled over the Chinese. The 14th Dalai Lama does not want to be a dictator, but also does not want China to take power and rule over Tibet. The 14th Dalai Lama has also asked international help from many countries from the United Nations. The major countries include the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia. Although the Chinese government is not happy with all the recognition that the 14th Dalai Lama has gotten from his teachings and his ways of being nonviolent, although the 14th Dalai Lama has a high chance of getting executed, he still uses nonviolent actions and still reaches out for support. The 14th Dalai Lama has faced much different opposition in his life. One major injustice faced by the 14th Dalai Lama is from China. China knows that the 14th Dalai Lama is not going to let them take over Tibet and make Tibet a dictatorship. Since China knows this, China has an assassination plot against the 14th Dalai Lama so that he would be out of the way. Having the 14th Dalai Lama assassinated wouldn't benefit China. If the 14th Dalai Lama gets assassinated, there would be another Dalai Lama put into his place. If China assassinated the 14th Dalai Lama, it would make China look very bad in the world. This may also lead other countries against China. China would also be convicted of murdering a leader of another country. The 14th Dalai Lama has been recognized for his nonviolent actions by many people and committees. The 14th Dalai Lama has also won many major awards for peace. The biggest award that the 14th Dalai Lama has won was the Nobel Peace Prize on December 10, 1989. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to the struggle of liberation of Tibet and the efforts for a peaceful resolution instead of using violence. The Nobel Peace Prize goes to the person who does the best work in fraternity between two nations, for the removal of armies, and for the promotion of peace. The 14th Dalai Lama used nonviolence in his acts of getting Tibet to be a non-dictatorship ruled country. The 14th Dalai Lama also uses the prize money won from his many awards and donates to several different charities. This quote is by the 14th Dalai Lama. There can be no peace as long as there is grinding poverty, social injustices, inequality, oppression, environmental degradation, and as the weak and small continue to be trodden by the mighty and powerful. What the 14th Dalai Lama is trying to say is that in order for there to be peace, there cannot be another nation trying to rule over them and make them the worst in the country. This shows the commitment towards freedom because the 14th Dalai Lama sees all the bad going on in Tibet and wants to do anything to try and stop it.
There are many ways in which Constantine and the 14th Dalai Lama are similar to each other. One way Constantine and the 14th Dalai Lama are similar is their childhood. Both the 14th Dalai Lama and Constantine spent their childhood with powerful and intelligent people. Constantine spent his childhood with his father, Constantius Chlorus, who was a Caesar and Augustus under the Roman Empire.
The 14th Dalai Lama spent his childhood with his teachers Yongzin Ling Rinpoche and Yongzin Tringyang Rinpoche, and the 13th Dalai Lama. Both Constantine and the 14th Dalai Lama must have learned a lot from the people they spent their childhood with, so they could become very powerful and famous people.
Another way Constantine and the 14th Dalai Lama are similar is how they handle the human rights issue. For Constantine, to solve the human rights issue, he wrote the Edict of Milan to stop the persecution of Christians under the Roman Empire.
For the 14th Dalai Lama, he drafted a constitution to try and make Tibet a democratic country. Both Constantine and the 14th Dalai Lama wrote documents to try to resolve the human rights issue.